Yeah, I've got a black belt in no BS gun talk. This is Gun Belts on Carry Chronicles. Let's get to work. Hey guys, Work here. Welcome back to Work the Trigger. On today's Carry Chronicles, we're going to be going over the backbone of the carry system. Now, what do I mean by carry system? Well, we've got a lot of different items with us that support the ability to carry a firearm. In addition to our mental prowess, our technical skill, we also have the physical gear itself. What gun, what holster, and what belt. Today, we're going to be going over belts a little bit, and I've had a few of them. Everything from your starter gun belt to the more mainstream, a little bit higher feature gun belts. We've got purpose-built leather gun belts, purpose-built synthetic gun belts, and finally the new age, whatever you want to call this thing. So let's talk about these just a little bit. So like all new gun owners, when I first started getting into this, I didn't understand the concept of what a belt meant to the entire carry system. So I picked up belts like this. Super flimsy, leather usually with a buckle that were comfortably tight, not always tight enough, and definitely not rigid enough. The first thing you want to make sure of is that the quality is actually up to par. So super flexy rigid belts like this, no matter if it claims to be a gun belt or not, that's not going to work. Now, a lot of companies will talk about the crush value on a belt, the ability to not crush a belt. For instance, here I've got the belt from Groove Life. Now, this belt doesn't crush. It's extremely rigid in its cross section, but you notice that it's super flexible in this direction. Now, they say that that's for comfort, and it is, but it also doesn't hold pants up very well, and it definitely doesn't hold a gun up very well. It's got an extremely nifty latch system. I actually love the latch system of this belt. I love the buckle of it, but the quality of the actual belt itself is nowhere near what you need to actually be able to carry a gun. Similarly, with these leather belts, even if it says it's purpose-built, if it doesn't have any rigidity to itself, it's not going to be a good gun belt. You can see just how much this one actually morphed over time around the body. Gun belts shouldn't do that much either. Up here around the buckle, that's okay for the most part. But once you get back here, you want a nice straight edge all the way around, because that's the sign that that belt's going to be able to hold up the weight of whatever you're carrying. Now, belts are going to matter a little bit depending on firearm size. Obviously, the bigger gun you have, the more sturdy of a belt that you're going to need. But even with the smaller guns like the Micro Compact 9s, the Sig P365, the Hellcat, the Taurus G4X, even with those, you're going to need belts that are substantially heavier duty than those belts that I just showed you. So now we know that you can't just go buy any belt. You know that you need to look for specific things. Now, what are some of the things that you need to look for? A lot of the times you are going to be looking for belts that are actually marketed as gun belts. Now, just because a belt says it's a gun belt doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be a good gun belt. However, if a belt doesn't say that it's a gun belt, it's probably not going to be a good gun belt. So you are going to be looking for belts that actually advertise that they're going to be good for carrying a firearm. Now, you're going to see a lot of options like these. First up, let's go with kind of the tactical ones. So here you've got like your rigger belt style material with your woven nylon. These typically have plastic inserts in them. This particular one is from a company called Core Essentials. The Core Essentials belts in this are actually the belts that I was sent, the only ones that I was sent out of any of these, and they're okay. I'll tell you a couple of the things I like and a couple of the things that I don't like about them. They are extremely quick to put on. They actually have a ratchet system based off of this ratchet section on the back of the belt, where as you put it into the buckle, you can listen. And that's what's going to actually hold the belt on, so you're not dealing with a standard buckle. That is pretty much my favorite part about it. They are relatively rigid, they hold their shape relatively well, but they don't hold their shape as well as some of the other belts that I've had. It's actually harder to cinch down on this than you might think, and although they held guns up relatively well, the bigger the gun, the more problems that I tended to see with this. They hold up the Micro 9s really well, they hold up subcompacts relatively well, but when you get into the compact and the full-size guns, they just don't do as good of a job. Part of it is, I think, due to the material, part of it's due to the latch system, but for those particular things, I generally go with a little bit more sturdy belt. Now, really quick, also along the lines of that Core Essential, is the Core Essential's a little bit nicer belt. This particular one is leather, and it's got that same ratcheting system that the other belt has. This is a really nice dress belt, and I do admit, I wear this more than I wear the rigger belt. The rigidity is about the same as the rigger belt. So again, you're going to have that same issue with the heavier belts, but this one does look extremely nice. And I've actually had a hard time finding a carry belt that looks as good as this belt when in dress clothes. So if you're looking for a nice dress belt to be able to carry with, I do highly suggest the Core Essentials belt from them, but I don't suggest this for EDC because it doesn't hold up guns quite as well as their rigger belt does. But like most things, when you're dressing a certain way, you do have to make choices about that type of a thing that will affect how and what you carry. So now let's go to basically what I use on a regular basis. So these are two belts. These are both from Deltec Force. I have no relationship with Deltec Force other than we're from the same state, which is, in my opinion, kind of cool. But I've talked to them a couple of times, never have gotten product from them, don't have coupon codes from them. They're just a company that happens to be in Indiana that I've happened to get their products before, and I freaking love them. So first I'm going to go over the one that I don't love quite as much. That is their rawhide steel insert gun belt. This belt actually has a steel insert inside it, and it's rigid. Like this one, you were talking about that crush test before. You're not crushing this one. It also holds up its weight relatively well. The material that I got is a worn leather, and it's nice and supple. Like it's not super stiff all the way through. That steel insert only goes to about here, right at the latches, which I both like and don't like. The reason I like it is because it does allow it to go on and off easy. The reason I don't like it is because I appendix carry, and this is where my gun sits, is right here on this a little bit less rigid area. I do wish that steel insert extended up a little bit. I do generally have my belt buckle not centered, it's over to the side a little bit, but even then you're still working with this little bit less rigid area. So that's just something that I don't like quite as much about this one. I got this specifically to test for you guys, and although I like it, I don't prefer it. What I do prefer is this. It looks very simple, but this is actually the Deltec Force Super BIOS belt. This is a synthetic material that's made to look like leather, and it's like a 75% job. From 10 feet, you can't tell. You get in closer and you can tell that it's not leather. I actually own two of these. I've had these belts for 5+ years, and this is the shape that this belt is in. It doesn't hold its rigidity quite as well as the steel core, but it also hasn't deformed almost at all in those 5 years. I've got a black one as well, and it also hasn't deformed at all. Now, I will say that the black one, I do think the Core Essentials belt is a better dress belt than the black Deltec Super BIOS belt. It's not as good a gun belt, it's a better dress belt. So I do tend to wear the black Core Essentials belt over the Super BIOS when I'm actually wearing a suit or something. But for EDC, the Deltec Force Super BIOS is an amazing belt. They come in around like, I think $50 to $60. I think they're closer down around the $50 mark. They come in multiple different colors. They come with multiple different hardware options. And this is a belt that's going to last you a very, very long time. Now, why do I lean that direction on my carry belts instead of like a rigger belt? Well, I'm not a tactical person. I don't wear cargo pants all the time. I'm wearing cargo pants right now, though. I don't carry around tactical stuff. I wear jeans, I wear t-shirts, and that's about it. So my persona, my personality when I'm choosing things to wear or when people can see the things that I wear, I don't want to reflect that tactical lifestyle. I want to reflect my lifestyle. So I automatically gravitate towards the belts that look more like a standard belt, more like a leather belt. There's nothing wrong with the woven belts. They're actually probably better woven belts than there are with the leather ones. I just don't like them or prefer them. A lot of the times they're a little bit thicker. The Deltec Super BIOS belts are actually relatively thin. They're about 3/16 of an inch thick. It's actually something that I don't like quite as much about that steel core is that it is a thicker belt. It's a little over 1/4 of an inch. So when you're running something like the Discreet Carry Concepts monoblock, it's a little bit harder to get that clasp all the way down and over. The riggers belts for a nice solid riggers belt are generally somewhere in between there. I also like the option of those Cobra clasps, but I don't like how they function in trying to get the belt on and off. I want to be able to get the belt off if I need to get the belt off, and those Cobra clasps, you've got to actually take the clasp off to get the entire belt off oftentimes. I don't like doing that. Not only that, there's just something a little bit more classic about a standard clasp. And generally speaking, I have a pretty easy time figuring out exactly how tight I need my belt to be with a clasp versus how tight I do with like a ratchet system or a fixed system like a Cobra belt. Because that's the thing with the Cobra belts is once you get that, it's a little bit more of a pain to be able to tighten or loosen it. Once you get it set, you're set, but getting it set a little bit more of a pain in the butt. Generally speaking, I just like a more classic belt, and that's what leads me over to the leather side, which led me to the Super Bios belts. I will have links down in the description for all of these belts. There will be affiliate links down there. Don't feel like you need to buy anything though. I'm not here to sell you a belt. I'm here to help you figure out what belt to buy. There is a difference there. You want something rigid, rugged, easy, and durable, and something that's going to match your style. Don't let other people tell you what design or style of belt you have to get, but also don't be blind when people are explaining to you why they chose the things that they wanted to get. I don't like the Riggers belts. That doesn't mean that you won't like the Riggers belts. If that matches your style, then get a Riggers belt. If you're like me and you like a little bit more dressed down or a little bit more incognito look, don't get a Riggers belt, but make sure that the belt has the fundamental things that you need to be able to carry a firearm comfortably. You would not believe the difference in comfort between a good belt and a bad belt. It's as big of a difference as a good holster and a bad holster. So thanks guys for listening. I hope this video helped you a little bit. If it did, leave a like down below. If you like this series of the Carry Chronicles, where I lay out the different stuff that I carry, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and the notification bell for the next one. Remember guys, I appreciate every one of you, and until next time, do your research, get informed, and get to work.